It's up to you, New York, New York.
Good morning. Happy Monday morning. It's the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. I am your host, Richie, riding solo today. Want to get into the deets of the World Baseball Classic. United States hanging on in a very incredible game. You got to give both teams, the Dominican Republic and the United States, a ton of credit here as both pitching staffs really performed at a high level. Terrific defense. Julio Rodriguez robbing Aaron Judge of a home run. And the home run played the part in the runs for each team. 2-1 victory for the USA. Roman Anthony, budding superstar for the Boston Red Sox. American League East foe Gunnar Henderson for the Baltimore Orioles, both going yard for the Americans. Dominican Republic, their lone run early in the game, a home run by a guy who had a terrific World Baseball Classic, Junior Caminero, also in the American League East of the Tampa Bay Rays. That is another guy that is a budding superstar. The Americans now wait for the result of Venezuela and Italy, which is going to be going on later today. Going to be a really exciting game. The Italians have not been defeated in this tournament yet. Venezuela only one blemish on their record, similar to the Americans' one blemish, which was against Italy. Paul Skeens, they said it at the top of the show in the pregame before this. Big Papi, Alex Rodriguez, Derek Jeter, all speaking on how it was going to be an unenviable task for Paul Skeens to take on this phenomenal Dominican lineup. And he went 4 2/3, pitched a pretty good game. And I think a big factor in the USA's victory was early on with Skeens not trying to strike out a ton of people and really looking for contact, trying to get guys out via contact as opposed to trying to strike out everyone. Because when you're trying to strike out everyone, you tend to be a little too fine. Sometimes you can leave something hanging on a fat part of the plate or, being susceptible to running up the pitch count. So Paul Skeens proving yesterday, in my unbiased opinion, that he is indeed the best pitcher in Major League Baseball. I think after him, you look at a guy like maybe a Tarek Skubal, who's also in the conversation. But Paul Skeens was everything yesterday. Great defense on both sides. Both of these teams were really flashing the leather yesterday. And it was just the kind of game that it was really a war of attrition. I will say this on a humble tip. I do believe that the final out of the game against Geraldo Perdomo was not strike 3. But the umpires all game on both sides did have a couple of funky calls where they were calling potential strike 3s low in the zone as well as very tight inside. I think that Will Smith, a guy who doesn't strike out very often, catcher for the United States, I thought he also got gypped on one. But, that's part of the game. Baseball has always been run by umpires where there's no extra extra. You get challenges for certain aspects of it, but you're not challenging balls and strikes, and that's just the human element of the game. Dominican Republic has nothing to be ashamed of. I want to make it clear that this picture here that I have of Aaron Judge with the bat on fire and Juan Soto on the ground. Nothing against the Dominican Republic. I have much respect for that squad. This is just fandom and banter. My best friend in New York, Richard Dorney III, diehard New York Mets fan. As many of you know, Soto was a rental for the Yanks. He left for greener pastures, greener pockets, and went over to Queens. Nothing against the Dominican Republic. Just want to make that clear with this photo. I personally believe the USA beat one of the best two teams in this entire tournament. The other, of course, being Japan, who shockingly was defeated by Venezuela, who's playing for a spot in the finals tonight. As today's game goes, I really am looking forward to it. I think that Francisco Cervelli has just done a phenomenal job with this Italian team, really over exceeding any and all expectations. But I have a feeling that today the fun ends for Team Italy. Give me Venezuela by a score of 5-4. I got the Venezuelans advancing to the finals to take on the United States, but either outcome would not shock me. Cashed in a little bit of money yesterday as my parlay hit. Wasn't a massive parlay, something light, but 10 to make 50, I'll take it. And whenever you play with their money, you can start doing more stuff, which I always like. But the United States still waiting for that signature moment where their offense just completely explodes. And it has not happened yet. Shouts out former Yankee, former Met, Luis Severino, starting pitcher for the Dominican Republic. I thought he did an admirable job going against the best of the best in Paul Skeens. That is not easy when you're on the bump and you have to be so fine and so perfect when Skeens is on the other side. But just a well-played game through and through. And I got a lot of respect for the Dominican fans. They exude and embody what it is to just love the game of baseball. A lot of class being shown in the stands, as I saw. A lot of congratulatory handshakes and hugs amongst Dominican and American fans. And that's what it's all about, man. It's a beautiful game, and it's all about inclusion. So big shouts out to the Dominican Republic, a team that I really thought had a legitimate shot to go all the way. My original prediction was the United States and Japan. Obviously, Japan is gone, so I got my one team remaining. Obviously, I'm pulling for the United States, in large part because of that man, number 99. And there's a couple of the Yankees on the squad. It was really cool seeing Austin Wells catching for the Dominican Republic. He was pinch hit for late in the game. Unbeknownst to me until a couple of months ago, I didn't realize that Austin Wells' grandparents were from the Dominican Republic. So, you learn something every day when they do some highlights on player profiles. I know a lot of people were mind blown to find out that Yankees first baseman Ben Rice was a fluent Spanish speaker. But it very cool that Austin Wells got this experience to be around some of the absolute best players in all of baseball. And I mean, you're talking about a team that features guys like Vladdy, Julio Rodriguez, Juan Soto, Perdomo, these just so many excellent players. So congrats to the United States on advancing. I would say the surprise of this WBC run is that Cal Raleigh, a guy who hit 60 bombs last year and finished second in MVP voting in the American League to Aaron Judge, has still not recorded a hit in this tournament. I would have to say that's the biggest eye opener. I was suspicious that Bryce Harper would struggle, but he did come through a little bit yesterday, knocked the tar out of the ball on his first time up. So, we'll see what happens. USA is definitely going to be favored with regardless of who they play. I have a hard time believing if the Italians make it that they would beat the United States another time, but crazier things have happened. And that's baseball, Susan. On to the NBA New York Knickerbockers. I tell you, man, it's frustrating being a Knicks fan sometimes. I love my team. I am very invested in seeing if they can get over the proverbial hump of the Eastern Conference playoffs and make their first NBA Finals since 1999. But, watching the game yesterday, you always feel good when your team has the ability to come back from a 20-point deficit. But the fact that it was a 20-point deficit against a Golden State Warriors team who doesn't have their best player, Steph Curry, and is just banged up on the whole, shouldn't happen, especially on your home floor. I give credit where it's due. The Knicks fought their way back. Jalen Brunson's first 30-point game in a while. But I was never comfortable down the stretch watching the way that that played out. And the difference in the game is that the Knicks were damn near perfect at the charity stripe, hitting 22 of 23 free throw attempts. But a frustration of mine during this NBA season has been seeing the Knicks consistently play down to the level of their competition. And they are only one game behind the Boston Celtics, two in the loss column. Detroit got beat yesterday. Uh, and the Knicks got to finish strong. Bottom line, this is a very favorable schedule down the stretch where the New York Knicks, in my opinion, should finish no worse than the 2 seed. Dallas Mavericks, big victory yesterday in Cleveland, getting the dub over a team that's either going to be the 4 or the 5 seed. I don't see Cleveland falling that further back than that, but it looks like with the Orlando Magic on a 7-game win streak and the Cleveland Cavaliers holding serve for the most part in that 4 to 5 range, that should be a first round matchup. Recent history, Cleveland has had Orlando's number. It's going to be a good one. I'm a little bummed. I was hoping Orlando would have kind of lined up in a position to play the Knicks. If the season were to end today, I spoke on it yesterday, the Miami Heat would draw the Knicks. I think that's a premier matchup in terms of what Eric Spoelstra could bring on the coaching spec of it. And, the Knicks and Heat have such a lineage and such a vicious rivalry. So it's always exciting to see if that could go down. Oklahoma City Thunder, defending world champions, stay hot, driving their winning streak up to 8 consecutive games. And I believe that they're primed for another run. SGA, in my genuine opinion, is proving that he is the best player in the NBA right now. You could also include Nikola Jokic in that conversation. But it's going to be a fun playoffs, on both sides of the NBA. I don't think there is a definitive absolute favorite. Of course, OKC being the defending champions and having a home floor advantage again, more than likely, unless something really wacky happened. Yeah, they're the 1 seed, and I believe that they're the most logical team to make it to the NBA Finals out west. In the East, it's going to be tough to forecast because I have a feeling that you're going to at least see one legitimate upset. Detroit Pistons have not been in this situation for quite some time, being this high in the standings. Got to go back to the Bad Boys 2.0 that Larry Brown was coaching, the Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, Rip Hamilton era. But NBA playoffs heating up, going to be interesting for sure. And as my Knicks go, I just hope that they can find some more consistency. I've been saying it for weeks. I've been saying it all year. Their transition to shooters, guys behind the arc, has been lackey all year long. And in the playoffs, it's gonna burn you. You get lucky when guys miss open shots. But it's only a matter of time until this hurts the Knicks. And I want to see smarter basketball. If you're beat on the first step and a guy's taking it to the rack, sometimes you just got to leave well enough alone instead of, putting players on the line, things of that nature. Steve Kerr is a phenomenal coach. I think him and Eric Spoelstra are the two best in the league. And, he's getting good effort out of his Warriors despite the disadvantages of not having their best player, and in my opinion, the greatest shooter of all time in Steph Curry. But Knicks got to stay focused. They've got to finish strong. It is that simple. This is a year where the expectations were very lofty that the Knicks should indeed make the NBA Finals. I said it going into the year that the New York Knicks, anything less than a finals appearance would be deemed a legitimate failure when you consider the injuries to two of their biggest roadblocks. Of course, the Boston Celtics recently welcomed back superstar Jason Tatum, and the Celtics held the fort down in Tatum's absence. The Indiana Pacers, the team that made the finals last year, are on the opposite side of that, where Tyrese Halliburton, his injury really profoundly affected their roster as well as losing an important piece of free agency. But Rick Carlisle's another guy that I put at the top of the list in terms of NBA coaches. Um, but yeah, the West wide open. Everybody knows that the Thunder are the favorites, but they're not unbeatable. And that's what makes these playoffs so much fun. It just takes a good week from anybody, and you could see the playoff brackets legitimately get busted up. A little bit of NFL news. Justin Fields traded to the Kansas City Chiefs today. He will be backing up Patrick Mahomes as the New York Jets were not pleased with his performance. And when he got benched, he also had some reluctance to come on in for certain sub packages, wildcat packages. So Justin Fields will now be backing up Patrick Mahomes out in Kansas City. And it's a good opportunity, I think, to kind of get a reset for his career. He's still young enough to get it together. I mean, you look at the recent signing that the Miami Dolphins did with Malik Willis. You put your time in, you don't give up on yourself. And no firmer example than what we saw with Sam Darnold winning the Super Bowl last month. So it's never over, even if you're a late bloomer or have some roadblocks in a career. You look at Baker Mayfield, he started off well with the Browns, got humbled out. He and Darnold were on that Carolina Panthers team competing against each other. Both of them have gradually improved. I said it on my last show. I love this Kyler Murray pickup for the Minnesota Vikings. I think that in the Kevin O'Connell quarterback school, he's going to be in a good position. I think former national champion from the Michigan Wolverines, J.J. McCarthy, will be serving as the backup. But you got two young quarterbacks there. So, Kyler's still a young guy, too. And I think that he has a wonderful chance to reclaim his career. I am subscribing to the notion, back to the Jets, that they are indeed tanking for potentially Arch Manning. It's going to be interesting if the Manning family even wants him to go to East Rutherford to play with the Jets. Of course, back in 2004, they forced Eli, his uncle, to the Giants because he didn't want any part of San Diego nor his family. So it will be very, very interesting to see how this goes with the draft. New York Giants, among others, very interesting. I think everybody feels that Fernando Mendoza is going to the Vegas Raiders, but I still think that they can get a legitimate haul. Which way are the Jets going at two? You got a phenomenal edge rusher in David Bailey. You have two excellent, excellent linebackers in Sonny Styles, as well as Arvell Reese. Or do they trade back and try to gain a little more draft capital? I know that Breece Hall's not the happiest guy. Would they have the audacity of taking Jeremiah Love at two? These are questions that are going to be answered in the near future. And we will be having some mock draft shows coming up as we start gearing up for the NFL draft. These are things that I do on daily, multiple drafts. I like to see the trends. I like to see which way things are looking for certain players that are going to be fulfilling their NFL dream. It's a very exciting time for the fans because whenever you get the NFL draft, you know that the schedule release is right around the corner. And that's where so many fans all over the country like to make their plans and where they're going to be following their team or if they're going to be making trips home, assuming that, some of the fans don't live in state. In my case, I live in Florida, but I will be making it a point to go to a Giants home game this year. I am very excited to see Coach Harbaugh lead this team and see where it all goes. It's an exciting time for the NFL. Definitely this country's favorite sport. But until next time, I am Richie. If you haven't already, please make it a point to like and subscribe to the channel, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube. Check out Old Man Energy Volumes 1 and 2. My co-host Idris Salam putting in a lot of passion and a life's work of his love for hip-hop music. Volume 2 is a jazz album. Volume 1 is hip-hop, definitely inspired from the boom bap era. Idris was the master engineer on that project. Very proud of my co-host. It doesn't matter how old you are, how long you've been doing anything, you can always continue to chase your dreams. And shouts out to you, Idris. Definitely music that's in steady rotation. You can find that album, Old Man Energy, Volume 1 and 2, on any and all streaming platforms. Announcements to come for my next show. And more than likely, we'll be bringing some company with me as I've been speaking to Zappy as well as Shed. So we're going to be making some time to get more of the crew back in here. Have a great Monday, everyone. Go Team USA. I'm out.